Georgia's spring game is coming up, folks, on April 15th. This Saturday, we got Anthony Dasher here to help us break it down and get us set for recruiting and everything else going on in Athens. Anthony, what's going on today?
Mark, just that time of year, busy time. Even though it's spring, you mentioned G-Day, the spring game coming up this Saturday, and Bulldog fans will get their first look at the team that, we'll see if they have a shot to make it 3 championships in a row coming up here.
Oh, I think regardless of what we see, even if we see guys tripping over each other on Saturday, we're still going to think that this team's got a shot this fall.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. It's a good team.
Well, I will say that I remember Georgia setting some type of attendance record. This might have been about 5 years ago, something in that range, 3 to 5 years ago. Is that still a priority? Is that still talked about? How many people do we expect?
No, I don't think it's quite as much a priority. That was in Kirby Smart's, I think, is his second G-Day where he kind of, challenged the Bulldog Nation to come out, and they wound up having about 90,000 people show up for the spring game. But since then, though, they've kind of backed off that a little bit. I think 40,000 last year, and I would suspect we're probably about that same amount of folks in Athens come Saturday.
So, of course, this is going to be on TV. I think ESPN2 is picking this one up.
Correct.
A lot of people are going to make much out of it. But again, we remind everyone, 15 total practices. There are other scrimmages that we don't see that are just as important. And with the cameras on, things are going to be vanilla. And we know that behind the scenes, they're not going to be vanilla, that they work on things that they want to show the opponent here eventually. So in some aspects, it's actually less important than a lot of that action that's behind closed doors. But based on your observations there at practice, on what little you get to see, but based on your conversations, coaches, coordinators, players, the whole deal, what's your take thus far on who stood out?
Well, I think you got to start with the quarterbacks. That's been the big, story, all spring is Coach Smart and Coach Bubbo, trying to find a replacement for Stetson Bennett. And so far, Carson Beck and Brock Vandegrift have been splitting the time with the ones. Of course, Carson is a guy got to play a little bit last year and threw for about 300 yards in mop-up duty. But Brock Vandegrift is a guy, former 5-star, is a lot better runner than Carson is, like in mobile quarterback. And that's something that Coach Smart even himself admits he's kind of drawn to a little bit after seeing what Stetson was able to do. And Brock's a better runner than Stetson was. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on. If he can limit his mistakes and, run the offense like it's supposed to be run, he's got a decent chance, I think, of, maybe wind up starting over Carson, which, maybe will surprise some people. But, folks who have, watched this team throughout the spring, I don't think they will be too shocked.
So when you watch these guys battle on Saturday, is there anything in particular that you can, based on your experience of covering these spring games through the years, that you will be able to take from this?
Not really. I mean, the biggest thing you want to see when you're watching the quarterbacks is just which one makes the fewest mistakes. I don't think again, you mentioned it's going to be a very vanilla scrimmage because a glorified scrimmage is exactly what it's going to be. But you want to see, if you're watching a quarterback, just see which one, just see how relaxed, how comfortable they look in the huddle. Do they make smart decisions? And that's going to be, I think, the biggest thing. Ultimately, it's going to decide who's going to be the starter. But that's really about all you can really get. You can see how strong their arms are. I mean, both these guys are going to throw the ball a lot. You'll probably see both of them throw for over 200 yards and probably 3 or 4 touchdowns apiece. That's just the way this thing's going to be set up. But whichever one makes the fewest mistakes, I think that may be something you kind of take moving forward.
So, Anthony, as we make our way through the spring, of course, there's talent stacked on every position. So there's no position to look at and say from a talent perspective that there's any concern. But obviously with entries to the NFL draft, both sides of the ball, what would be the concerns in regards to productivity coming back and young guys that need to step up?
Excuse me. I think the biggest thing probably is on the offensive line. They've got some guys returning. Cedric Van Pran at center, both guards. Georgia has to find a new left tackle, for Broderick Jones, and you got 2 guys right there now who have not, one has not played at all, where the other one, Austin Blasky, has played guard, center, and tackle, but hasn't really seen a lot of left tackle action. But he's been working there a lot this spring, and right now it's between him and Ernest Green Jr. But that's I think the one spot that Coach Smart has talked about extensively this year. They really need to, try to see if we can kind of maybe take control there. But otherwise, Georgia has a lot of young receivers, wide receivers. They're trying to, get some experience. They brought some transfers in, Dominic Lovett, Ray Thomas from Mississippi State. They want to get those guys feeling a little more comfortable with what the offense is all about. But, otherwise, you look on the defensive side, there's some spots at cornerback, at safety. Outside linebacker is going to be a very young position, but it's just a ton of talent. But like you said, though, Georgia does such a good job recruiting. I think it's just a matter of these guys getting experience, and I'm not sure you're going to see Georgia have much of a drop off once the season begins.